How's it going, YouTube? Fucking always crooked. How's it going, everyone? Cody Bernardi here with another oversaturated video with light. In today's video, we are going to be talking about APIs. Now, APIs are very important when it comes to tooling, especially in OSINT and security and such like that, mainly because a lot of the work that we are doing does require some sort of manual analysis, which is a very important part of OSINT and security as well. But there's just little bits of intelligence gathering and security orchestration, I think that's the word, that you don't necessarily need to do manually, and honestly will save you a bunch of time if you're able to just let a machine or your computer do it on your behalf. And that's where APIs come in. If you've used Maltego before, Maltego, in my words, is just an API aggregator. And what basically that means is all the different plugins that they have in Maltego. Typically, if it requires some sort of account, it will ask for an API key. That's because Maltego is doing API calls on your behalf and gathering that information and making it look all pretty. I love Maltego, and I should probably make a video on it again soon. So anyways, in this video, we're going to be talking about API documentation, terminology in APIs, and taking that data and actually using it for something useful, such as importing data into Tableau. Also, quick shout out to Greynoise for giving me a VIP key for this video. So if you don't know who Greynoise is, and again, they didn't pay me or anything like that for this video, they just gave me an API key. So I wanted to disclose that. They pretty much saved the internet and a lot of people's headache and heartache with Log4j back in December 2021. So thank you so much, Greynoise, for the API key, and thank you so much for what you do for the security community. Now, let's get onto my screen and talk APIs. Okay, so this video may or may not be a complete show. I think this is probably the, sixth time I've tried making this video, and I either screw something up or I'm not fully prepared in Tableau or anything like that. So I'm going to skip everything I don't know to include Tableau. I think I need to freshen up my skills on Tableau a little bit. It's been a couple of years since I've used Tableau on a day-to-day basis, as well as Wireshark. I'll like go on Wireshark and all that and show you how to capture traffic and all that, but that's kind of outside the scope of this video. But let's go ahead and just dive straight into APIs. So what is an API? So an API is Application Program Interface. And basically what that means is, I'm going to use Greynoise as my examples in this video. But basically what that means is you're able to get the data that you normally would get on a graphical user interface, but on command line. That's the best way I can explain it. So I'm on Greynoise right now, and if I was to do a query for CVE, so if I was to do CVE 2021-44228 and hit enter, I will get all of these results back. In an API, I will get these same exact results just in a text format. So I'll get the top countries, I'll get classification, I'll get any tags, first time seen, last time seen, reverse DNS, all that fun stuff. So I'm going to show you all of that stuff. So that's kind of what an API is, if I was to break it down in layman terms. It's just text of what you normally would get on a GUI, graphical user interface. So before we get into like building out API calls and using Postman, all that, I want to go over some terminology that you'll see frequently when talking APIs with other people. So the big one is going to be the methods, or HTTP request methods. And these are basically the different ways you can interact with an endpoint or a service. Those are kind of interchanged synonymously. An endpoint is just basically, like in our case, we're going to be using Greynoise for the most of this video. So we will be hitting Greynoise's endpoint to do what we need to do. But the kind of the main bit of APIs is the different methods you can use. So the first one is the get method. And the get method is basically you're looking to get something from that endpoint or that service. So in Greynoise's example, we're looking to get information about a particular IP address. Pretty self-explanatory, but just wanted to put that out there. Head, I've really never used. Post is another popular one, and that's kind of the inverse of get. You're looking to post something to a service. So Greynoise isn't necessarily a place where you'll do a lot of post requests, but like on Shodan, for example, we'll do a post request later on, but you're telling Shodan to do something. So in Shodan's case, you're telling Shodan to scan an IP address. So you're posting to Shodan to have Shodan do something on your behalf. A put request is another semi-popular one, but you're looking to change something that already exists. So in the case of either Greynoise or Shodan, you're looking to, let's say for an example, change someone's administrative level of their account. So let's say they're a user and you're looking to make them a manager. You'll do a put request to basically just change something about a resource or something that already exists. The next one being delete. That one's pretty self-explanatory. You're just deleting something that already exists. So let's say that you have an alert set up on Shodan and you're looking to delete that alert. You'll do a delete request to Shodan and they will delete that record. So that's kind of what that means. So methods are kind of the big part of APIs. The next one is API headers. And you do get, I mean, when you go to a website, you have headers. Typically, your browser includes its own headers when you're going to a website. But API headers are kind of important. So mainly what I usually experience with headers is authentication, which we'll talk about in a bit, as well as the requested with header. And I'll show you that as well. But the main one is more than likely going to be authentication, which will be your token, which is another terminology that you'll talk about a lot. So when you authenticate to, Greynoise.io on their visualizer, you have a username password. And that's what you're all probably familiar with, is that username password and maybe 2FA. With APIs, it's a little different. Most of the time, you're not going to have a username and password. Sometimes you can. But more likely, you're going to have something called an API key or a bearer token, which are kind of the same thing. I think a bearer token is just a different version of a username password credential set. However, your API key is a credential, and that is something that you should keep secret. Which, by the way, is a fun little bug bounty tip. If you find an API key, typically it'll be put in comments or something like that. Or if a developer is super lazy and they include that in their Git commits, they'll put like API equal or API key equals or secret key equals, and that's literally their password on the API. So, and typically you'll include that in an API header, which I'll show you in a bit on this tool called Postman. So I'm just going to go ahead and pause right here because I know I'm going to get blasted in the comments. I rotated my API keys before posting this video because I just don't want to spend all the time redacting, blurring, all that stuff. I will just go ahead and show my API key to my Greynoise and Shodan account and just rotate it, because have at it. Like, you can go ahead and try those API keys. It's not going to work. So that's just a common security practice. If you believe your password or API key was breached, rotate it. It's the best thing you can do. In this case, my API keys were breached because I'm making this damn video and y'all have access to that old key. But if that old key doesn't work, obviously, I'm mansplaining right now. On with the video. Another bit of terminology, which I honestly can't explain. I'm about to find out right now. REST API versus SOAP API. There is no direct comparison between SOAP and REST API. SOAP uses only XML for exchanging info, whereas REST is non-restricted to XML and it's typically JSON, plain text. Okay, so that's what I figured. I mean, I know of the two. I've always used REST APIs, but I never really knew what SOAP API meant. But you'll see that occasionally, REST API and SOAP API. Just know they pretty much do the same thing. One just uses XML for payloads, and I'll talk about payloads and such in a bit, for payloads and responses. So I know that all might sound super confusing. Trust me, this is a true beginner to somewhat user-ish level of APIs. So now that we got that out of the way, the number one tool that you should be using with APIs is this is where I learned APIs, and this is where I think a lot of people could get accustomed to using APIs, is this tool called Postman. There's other tools like it. I think Swagger is another one. I've only used Postman, so that's what I'm familiar with, so that's what I'm going to be using. But go ahead and download Postman, and basically it is just a graphical user interface for building out APIs and saving API requests so you can reference them back at a future date. So I'll show you how to build everything out in Postman to get you started. In this particular video, I'm going to be focusing on Greynoise because they did give me a free API key to their enterprise ecosystem. So thank you so much, Greynoise. They didn't pay me or anything to make this video. There's like very few companies that I will like drool over. Greynoise is like one of like 4, maybe. Shodan's another one. So yeah, thank you so much, Greynoise, for this key. I'm seriously gonna milk the fuck out of this API key that y'all gave me. So, but anyways, this is Postman right here. And when you download it, it will pretty much look like this. You won't have the collections bit over here. So it will mainly look like this. So I'll show you everything you need to get ready to go. And I'll show you Greynoise because they did give me a key, so I want to show their product off a little bit. But a lot of you probably have a Shodan account, so I'll show you how to build stuff with Shodan and all that in this video. And I'll leave timestamps for everything down below, so if you already know something, go ahead and feel free to skip forward. Just make sure you interact with all of the ads in this video, like click, subscribe, like do everything you can with those ads, because I don't have a conflict of interest with anything pertaining to that. So Postman is beautiful because if a service like Greynoise has an API, it would behoove them to create what we call a Postman collection. Now, a Postman collection is literally every API call that your service can do, and it's just built out for you, and all you have to do is hit a send button and of course change the payload to whatever you want. And I'll show you what that looks like real quick. So let's say hypothetically you have a Greynoise enterprise account, which I think they actually do have like one API call you can make with their free version. But if you're sandbagging them and you have a corporate and you're using it for corporate purposes, I would encourage you to reach out to them to get a corporate account, because you can do all this other cool stuff with it. Again, not being paid by them or anything like that. So first thing I would do is I would look up whatever service you're looking to run APIs on. I'd look up that service and Postman collection. So in the case with Greynoise, I would do Greynoise Postman collection. Greynoise Postman collection. Of course, I've looked it up a few times. And we're going to go to their developer API or a documentation right here. And I'll just Control F, Postman collection right there. And it brings me to this page right here, which you're like, okay, whatever the hell this means. You're just going to Control C the URL up there, and you're going to go to Postman. Check this out. You're going to hit import via link, throw that link in right there, hit continue, and it's going to import Greynoise's entire API collection. So all the API calls you can make with a Greynoise's product will be included right here. And if I hit import, it's going to bring me, and I'm not going to hit import because I already did that. It's going to bring me to not that. Not that. It's going to bring me to this. All of the different API calls I can make with Greynoise. Like just like that. It's already categorized them by GET requests and POST requests. Like that's like beautiful. Shodan has this. Qualys kind of has it. They kind of half baked it. I'm personally making a complete comprehensive API collection for Qualys. Why I'm looking at you, Qualys. I don't know why you closed out my case. It should be included with your entire API documentation. Anyways, I'm not going to talk shit about other products. Anyways, Greynoise has everything right here. So they have all their GET requests, and they put it out. Basically, all you have to do is include your authorization or authentication token, which you could get on their website, and you put that in your environment. I'll show you all of this, of course. And then all you have to do is just change this like last bit right there to whatever you want. hit send, and it will get you a response. So we import everything, and I talked about authentication. We haven't touched anything about that yet. So let's talk about Postman environments. So environments in Postman, the best way I can explain it is just assigning commonly used things to a variable. So in the case of Greynoise, a few things that we will consistently use throughout our use of their API is going to be their base URL, which in this case they include in the actual URL itself. But for the most part, that is going to be that api.greynoise.io/v2 is going to be consistent across all of their API calls. So what you can do is assign that to a variable, and instead of typing out that entire string, you could just call the variable, and Postman will know what to do with that, and it will substitute that variable out for you. Another variable that you'll find yourself using a lot is your authentication token. So typically your API key is randomly generated, and it's a pain in the ass having to paste that in every time or type that in every time. So all you have to do is assign that to a variable, and all you have to do is call that variable, and you can make that variable name anything you want. So where you do that is in this environment section on the top right of Postman. And right next to the no environment, which is what you will see, is this little eye icon. And all you have to do is hit add. So in this case, we could just add our stuff in here. So we can name this variable auth. And then type, we can make it secret or default. This is a new feature, I believe. I've never seen this before. And then you put in your actual authentication token right there. So anytime I'm looking to do an API call with Greynoise, all I would have to do is go to my headers, and then where it says key, it'll just leave it as key, and then the value will be whatever you typed in, the variable name. So if it was auth, you'd throw that in double brackets, and then it will substitute that for whatever you typed in up here. So in my case, I have it set to Greynoise VIP. And if you take a look at the eye icon, I have the variable name set to GN_API_key. And then this is my API key right here. Again, this is my literal password to Greynoise, which I'm talking to Greynoise and having them rotate that key before I publish this video, so y'all don't go ham with my account. So as you can see, as I hover over it, the GN API key thing right there gets substituted for my actual API key. And if I hit send right here, it will, in this case, a random IP address. It will just randomly select one for me, and it will return something. So in this case, it searched the IP address 120, whatever, and then we got a response of noise, false, rule it out, or riot, false, and then code 0x00. So we know that our API request went through to Greynoise, our authentication worked, and we're going to go to use anything else that they have as far as these different other calls go. So a few things to look at here. The rule it out feature is pretty nice. So I would say the main use case of Greynoise, and obviously if you're interested in their product, reach out to them, let them sell their own product to you. I'm just going to share my own use case. I work in vulnerability management, and Greynoise is like a super powerful tool as far as determining which vulnerabilities stack up against each other, which ones are more riskier than others, because it's just literal raw data of CVEs. But if you're working in like incident response or threat intel, what you're able to do is your endpoints are getting hammered by all these different pings, all these different SSH connection attempts. I mean, everything you can think of. If you're on TCP dump on any internet facing system, it's just a fucking, imagine the internet like a Metallica concert in 1988. In like, where's the epicenter of like Metallica? I don't know, like Los Angeles, maybe? Like, think of that noise and then like double it. That's how noisy the fucking internet is. Think of Skrillex in 2012. Skrillex, like he just dropped Bangarang. That's how loud the internet is. Times 2. Think of Armin van Buuren in 2004 in Ushuaia in Ibiza. Ibiza. That's how they say it. I think that's how you say it. Double that. Excision nowadays. Thunderdome. 5 times that. That's how fucking loud the internet is. So what you want to do is you want to sort through the noise, and you can build out scripts. I'm sure Greynoise would be able to assist with this, but like you want to rule out all the, you know, boring stuff. Like if Google for whatever reason was scanning the internet, you want to filter that out through your logs and basically parse your logs down to like, okay, these are the IP addresses that are like, they want some smoke. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like these are the IP addresses that they want some shit. Like they're about that shit. They're about that life. So that's what the riot is. So like if I go to Greynoise's actual visualizer, and I was to take like this IP address right here, I copy that and I go back to Postman, and instead of random IP, I throw in that IP address and I hit send. It says rule it out false. That means this IP address wants smoke. So I'm going to go ahead and do a GNQL query, Greynoise query language query, and I'm just going to do like IP : and then I'm going to throw that IP in there and get some info about it. So in this case, we have complete true, so that's good for automation. If it says false, you have to paginate and all that and sort through everything. So now we get some info about this IP. So we have the IP address, the metadata associated with it, so the autonomous system number, the city, country code, category, tort, like all this information about it. And in Postman, what you're able to do is save the response in a JSON format, run it through Linux and have it do its thing. You could sort, unique, cut, all that stuff in Linux, which, by the way, I will show you right now how to move away from Postman, because Postman's mainly like the diving board, but it's not like the actual dive. It's like a terrible analogy. I don't know what the fuck I was going with that, but think of like this is the diving board. This is where everything gets a little nice. So over here on the right, you have the code section, and you're able to export this API call into various different languages. So curl is mainly going to be what a lot of us are going to use. So that's natively supported in PowerShell command line, Windows command line at least, Linux command line. But if for whatever reason you're just not about that life, you can have it natively export into PowerShell or Python requests or Python HTTP client or wget. So in this case, I'm just going to show you what this looks like in PowerShell. So as you can see, it builds it out for us. We're just going to hit Control A, Control C, open up PowerShell down here, and drag this thing over. Right click, hit enter. There it goes. We got the response right there. It built it out for us. Now we could save this particular API call out into its own commandlet. And if I was to go here, what I could do is I could change some stuff in here. So in this case, like the API key is not going to change. The collection bit is not going to change. The invoke REST method, so API.greynoise.io experimental GNQL query, this will change. So we can make that a variable. So we can have an input into this. Instead of like that particular IP address, we can input a file, and it will parse through that file in a loop, and it'll say, yep, here's all the information we have about this IP address, and then export that into a file, and then you can do whatever you want with it. I mean, there's like the amount of information is limitless. I'm not going to talk about like scripting in this video. I just want to get y'all introduced into APIs and all that. So there's a lot we could do here. I mean, Greynoise has a ton to offer. So with that, one little bit I want to talk about before we move on to actually building out an API call is parameters. So this is the bread and butter of your payload. So payload is the information you're sending over to the endpoint. So if we go back to, let's see. So I guess, I don't know if Greynoise actually uses, okay, so I guess they have a parameter right here. So a parameter is something that will show up in the URL up here. So in this case, we're looking at specific APIs. So we're going to do quad 8, comma, quad 1. So the parameter is APIs equals, and then the payload is quad 8, quad 1. We'll go ahead and hit send, and we will get this information right here. So we both have noise, false, rule it out, true. So that's a parameter. And I'll show you more in depth about parameters when we build out our own API calls in Greynoise. So now that we've gotten this far, collections are pretty nice. A lot of products use Postman collections. So if you have like Splunk, I never use Splunk, but if Splunk has a collection, you could just import it and it will have all your API calls in there. All you have to do, again, change the environmental variables at the top to be specific to you, and you should be good to go. So with that, let's say you don't have the ability to have a collection. You have to build out everything yourself. And that's exactly what we're going to do in this bit right here. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all of these API calls right here, and I'm going to show you how to build everything out yourself. Okay, so this API video collection up here, this is going to be everything Shodan. So first things first, I'm going to close out everything up here, and we're going to go to Shodan.io. So I've talked plenties of times about Shodan. Y'all know I'm a Shodan dweeb. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. Now, cool thing about Shodan is we all have an API key if you have an account, which if you don't have an account and the $50 is restricting you from accessing things on Shodan, reach out to me. I'll hook it up. Okay. Shodan's hooked it up to me. I'm going to hook it up to you. But for API stuff, we'll click on developer on the top. And this is where you're going to find all their info about their command line interface, like pip install and stuff. But we're going to be focusing on their REST API. So from here, we have a few things we can look at. We have a dashboard, which I think is just going to show us all the different queries we've made this past month, the IPs we're monitoring, scan credits, all that stuff, which is nice to see from a management perspective, but we don't care about that. We want to get straight into the API stuff. So if you click on API reference, this is a list of everything you can do with the Shodan API. Obviously, you're going to be restricted on the kind of account you have. You and I both don't have this enterprise account, which Shodan. I'm not going to say no if you give me an enterprise account. And I'm just saying. I'll use it for personal use only. So anyways, moving on. We will do everything by hand. We're going to make our own Postman requests, save them, and reference them at a future time. So first thing to note, we have our base URL right there, which means that is the URL that's not going to change. So what did I mention earlier in this video? Things that don't change, assign it to a variable. And that's exactly what we are going to do. So we are going to go to API video, which I know I've already started creating stuff. I'm sorry. I'll go ahead and remove all of this. I think I could do that just like easily, maybe. I think I can. No, I don't think I could delete. Yeah, I don't think I could delete them all just like that. We'll do this. Okay, so go back. So the base URL is that right there. So we will go to Postman. We're going to assign the variable base underscore URL. And the type is going to be default. It's not a secret or anything like that. And we're going to plug that into there. And as you can see, I have that like little carriage return icon right there. Hit backspace. And then what you're going to do is hit save and actually add that into there as well. Hit save. So anytime you reference in two curly braces base URL, it's going to replace that with api.shodan.io. And I think just for best measure, we're going to leave it like that. Yeah. Okay. Another one we want to include in here is something that's never going to change, is our authentication token. So again, we will put auth. You can name it whatever you want, but we're just going to name it auth. And then the initial value is going to be our API key, which you could get on the top right of Shodan. And then we will go here and hit save. So now those are the two variables that are not going to change through most of our API calls. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, first things first, before you do anything, make sure you are in the correct environment. If you were to change anything in here, if you're to be like in binary edge, it's going to change your auth. It's going to change everything. So make sure you are in the correct environment. Now that we got that, we are going to add a request. So it's going to be a blank request. The first thing it's going to highlight is what you are going to name this request. This is not going to be associated with the actual API call itself, but this is something that you could see on the left-hand side over here. So in this case, we are just going to do a simple host search on Shodan. So if we're going to click on this right here, we have a fully built out request URL, all that stuff with our auth token. Lovely, but not going to do that right now. So all we are going to do is just copy this bit right there. Go back to Postman. I'm just gonna do this. So we are gonna do base URL. So in this case, if we hover over it, it's API Shodan.io. Paste that into there. And then we are going to give it a name, which in this case is going to be host search. So we're going to click on the little pen icon and name it host search and hit save. So now we have one more thing we need to do, which I think is our authorization. So API key equals auth. Okay. So all we have to do now is plug in an IP address and hit send. And let's see what we get. Just like that, we got a response. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you do get an error, you might need to tweak around with these. So it might not work with header, but it might work with query parameter. So keep that in mind. You might have to change that up a bit. So in the case of Shodan, it's a query parameter. And as you can see, we got a response right here. You could do the same thing we did last time, export that code or save it. Or you could save the response to a JSON file right here. You could do whatever you want. So let's go ahead and make a post request. So we're going to tell Shodan to scan something for us. So same thing. We are going to take this pathway right there, Shodan/scan, and go to Postman. So all we are going to do to save yourself time, we're going to hit duplicate, click on here, hit the pen icon up here, Shodan scan request. And since this is a post request, we are going to change this from get to post. And then we're going to change this URL structure to that. And everything is going to remain the same. So we are going to do API key, query parameters, go ahead and hit save. Now, if we hit send, it's going to ask what our payload is going to be. It's scanned. I don't know what it's scanning. We didn't tell Shodan to scan anything. Let's go ahead and take a look at their documentation real quick. Parameters. So if you don't put in anything, I think it's literally going to scan the internet for you. So we could see parameters right here. We have IPs and service. What we could do in Shodan is go to params, add IPs, and add, what was the other one? Service. Okay, so now that we have those two highlighted, what we can do is under IPs, we can add an IP address, quad 8, and if there's a service, let's put in some junk to see what it says. We might get an error return. We might not. I have no idea. We didn't get an error return. I'm surprised. So let's go ahead and uncheck service. So you could see that's not included at the top right there, but if we check it, it will include it at the top. So I don't know if there's a list of different services we can use. I think there, oh no, there is an API call for that as well. So we can do AFP maybe. I don't know. I doubt Google DNS is running AFP, but go ahead and hit send, and we'll go ahead and scan quad 8 for AFP. Now, what I would personally do is I would uncheck these. I would remove the values, and I would hit save. So in that case, I can always reference back to Shodan scan. I could select IPs. I can add a range if I wanted to, and hit send. Once it's done, I can close that out. So if I was to close this out, go back to Shodan scan request, it's a blank slate again. So yeah, that's a post request right there. And again, the same sort of spiel. You can do quad 1s in our case. Go ahead and export that into PowerShell. Control C, and then paste that into there. There you go. Made an API call telling Shodan to scan quad 1s. And if you want to check the status of a scan, again, we'll just duplicate this. We'll rename it Shodan scan update, maybe. Go ahead and hit save. And for us, we will go ahead and remove these parameters because I don't think they are what we need. So hit save. We'll go back here and Shodan scan ID. So this is what we need right here. So we'll go ahead and copy this. And then we will go back to Postman. And it's not a post request, it's a get request. And then we do have some parameters, I believe. So ID. So that is a parameter we put in right there. Go ahead and check that box. And I think oh, I know it's in PowerShell. We'll take this ID right here. And then paste that into here. Hit send. And resource not found, authorization, query parameters, get request, ID equals, something's going on here. Headers. X requested with curl, maybe. I have no idea. 404 not found. Shodan scan. Let's go back here. Shodan scan ID. So ID. ID equals what? So parameter ID equals that. Get request. Huh. Headers, authorization. Am I going crazy or what? Resource not found. Sure about that? A little suspicious. A little suspicious. Get request. Let's do just scans. I don't know about that, Chief. I don't know about that one, Chief. So it's there. I don't know why it's not showing up. So we have a few scans queued, but they're there. So, yeah. And then what you can do with this is obviously you can import this data into Tableau or Power BI and you can visualize all the data. But I think that's for another video, since I tried doing that yesterday and I failed miserably at that. So anyways, thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button with the bell notification enabled so you can get notified anytime I post a new video. I would like to get myself involved with some of the stuff going on overseas with Ukraine and Russia, doing some OSINT on all that. It is definitely outside of my comfort zone. I've never really done geopol stuff before. But I don't know. Ben Strick, if y'all don't follow him, I will put a link to his YouTube channel down below. That guy is like if y'all follow me for OSINT, I think you're following the wrong channel. Like Ben, it does this for a living. Ben's real good. It makes way better quality content than me. I'm just a security engineer. Like I just like playing with Linux and shit. He's more articulate than I am and better with his words and far better than I am with knowledge in geopol, imagery, satellite, just OSINT related. So great OSINT resource. So I would encourage y'all to follow him down below and check out some of the videos that he's made as well. So anyways, that is it for this video. Also, I am approaching 10,000 subs. I will be giving away an OCP attempt to anyone that is able to prove to me and my mods on Discord that they are willing or I guess that they would benefit from an OSCP or an equivalent attempt to bring them from where they are currently at to the next level. My dream is to take someone that's like unable to afford something like the OSCP. Once they get that certification, they're like instantly getting hit up by recruiters left and right. Like that's what I want. That's my whole goal. I know people are going to try to SE their way into $1,000 certification. So the way I run things is just a gentleman's sort of agreement. You're not going to be a piece of shit. And if I find out you are being a piece of shit and trying to SE me and my mods to get a free $1,000, we will call you out and we will make sure that it's not going to be a fun time for you. So just be honest. That's all I want. So join my Discord down below. Let me know if you are in need of an OCP attempt and we'll pick someone at random. And then also, if you need a Shodan account, please DM me directly on Discord or Twitter. I'll hook you up. I think I have like 20 codes left for Shodan upgrades. So if you need that, let me know. I'll hook it up. So anyways, that's it for this video. Y'all take care. Goodbye.